Here is a relatively simple stone cottage from the north of England. But no matter how simple a building appears to look, it's important to have a quick look at our reference first to do a little bit of planning. The first thing I do is work out, am I going to draw everything? In this drawing, I'm not going to include this telegraph pole or this car or the top of this stone fence down here. I'm going to simplify it a bit. The next thing I want to work out is to do with scale. This is the size of my reference photo. Here's my paper. How large do I want to draw it? The same size as my reference? Do I want to make it a smaller image or a larger one? I'm going to plan to draw it approximately the same size. Next, I want to start to understand the shape of this building. Basically, it's a box, and the box has had a section cut out. Another section has been put in to that space. And if I look carefully, I see that while it joins up here with this wall, it actually doesn't join up with this wall. It steps back 30 centimeters or so, and this downpipe sits in part of that spot. They're the sorts of details it's good to notice. Now that I have a three-dimensional sense of the basic structure, I have a quick look at some of the shapes that I'm going to need to draw. And I think this shape is a pretty key shape. So it's a rectangle, and I want to draw this rectangle. And the important thing is that I draw this rectangle with the same proportions, because if I draw this shape proportionately correct, and this shape proportionately correct, and this shape proportionately correct, and it's really going to help the overall building be in proportion. One important detail to note is that this edge of the roof line is not straight, it slopes. In real life, it's not straight, it slopes. Keeping proportions correct in freehand drawing is always harder at the start because I don't have anything to reference off. The more I draw, the easier it becomes to work out approximately where my lines need to be. At this stage, I'm really wanting to define where the edges of my building are. I'm not trying to get caught up in representing any detail. I haven't worked out how much detail I want to draw yet. I want this to be a quick sketch, so I'm not going to end up drawing every brick. So I'm going to start at this point, and I want to get this line, and this is my method of measuring angles. I use my pen, and I come across. This line comes down, so I'm now drawing this corner. I'm not sure how far it goes down, so I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Now I'm going to pop this line in place. Now I need to put this line in place. I'm going to put this downpipe in next. Then will give me this spot. I'm just going to check this line. I want to create a box that has these proportions. I feel like this does slope too much. Yep. So I'm going to correct it while I can, just by changing some of the lines. Now I'll get this roof line in approximately right. But even so, I'm still just going to do a light line there. And I focus on where I want the line to end, not on the tip of my pen. Now from here, this corner, we have a straight line down. From here, I've got this line. Okay, the angle's a bit steep, make it a bit less steep. I'm not sure why, but I made the mistake of putting this line at the end of the line, which isn't really where I want. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw this line across halfway, and if I continue this line, the corner is just below. So if I draw this line across, it pretty much hits on the corner. So that's where the line should be. I'm just going to ignore that for now. I can't do anything about it. And it's the proportion of this almost parallelogram that I want to be checking. Now from this corner here, the line comes back somewhat at a bit of an angle. It gives me this corner now comes down. So we're going to come up and get this line. I'm going to put this window in because that's going to help me get the scale that I need. I want this to be about the same. This point here is kind of in the lower part of it, and the top of it is kind of under there. This tree is just a series of dark spots and jagged shapes, and so that's what I'm drawing. I'm not trying to draw a tree, I'm not thinking of a tree. I'm thinking of replicating the effect of these shapes and the colour that they are, which is a dark one. Now there's the top of a window down here that again is just a little bit down from the edge. So this helps me line up where the hedge should go. That helps me line up this section of the hedge. It's going to help me then plot this window accurately. This window is in line with the one above it, and the top of this window is a little bit above that one. Now the top of this wall is kind of broken stonework. I don't want to draw a straight line. If I just put a few kind of marks, I can make that a more exact. Now we'll add a bit more to our building, and I'm going to get this angle now sorted. So I put the dot and then I double check. This is a tiny bit lower. There is a fence here that lines up with this. It's a little bit higher than this point here. So I've got this point here. I come across to here. It's a little bit higher. So now I'm going to add this little window. The temptation is often to draw it too large. We'll get the roof line in place now. What I'm measuring is I'm drawing an imaginary line straight up here and seeing that if I do, it hits this line about there, because I worked hard to position this window in the correct spot, so therefore I can use that. Always cross-check with the actual reference photo. The other thing I can see is that the distance from here to here is about the same as from here to here. And that's probably actually a safer way to go. And the other thing is, how far does this line go? Well, look at this corner here. They pretty much line up. So this corner here, it's going to go somewhere like that. And it's a light line, so I can work over it if I need to. It's just a little bit low. Now I have my roof line in place. So now let's get this first chimney. The thing to note is that this corner and this corner line up in a perspective line. Let's get this roof line done first. We can see that this corner, I've drawn the line too far. My principle is always to draw the building accurately and just let mistakes hang there. And here, of course, we have more hedges. So when we draw directly with ink, it's important that we get the lines in the right place. And if they're not in the right place, keep doing adjustments, because I'll show you something at the end. If we look at our reference photo, we can see that this chimney is actually narrower than this chimney. This line is a little bit too steep, but that's okay because I can adjust it there and here because it's a gutter. So now the angle of that line looks a lot better. And so I have two windows to place in here. And the tops of the windows, if we draw this line down, it's and so now we've got our basic outline drawn. Now we kind of add the detail. I'm going to work on this section first to provide enough detail to help give a context to our cottage and to provide some visual interest with our line work. I'm really just trying to do strokes, line work that makes this look different to this. Now it's worth pointing out that it usually takes as long to draw these non-building elements as it does to draw the building. And it's important that we don't rush or be careless with our supporting elements. What details do I want to add? How do I want to represent the stonework is fairly important. Now, I don't want to be drawing all the bricks, but I want people to know that this is a brick building, a brick cottage. So I need to suggest the stonework, and the stonework needs to follow the perspective lines. I don't want to draw all the stonework, so I just want to suggest it. Because when our brain looks at a building, it doesn't actually look at all the stones, it sees some of them. And it kind of registers, it knows that there's more happening there than it can see. The important thing though is to just work at getting the scale right. I'm not drawing all of them, I'm suggesting them. But the ones I do draw need to be accurate. And the bricks or the stones will get smaller the further away they are. And the most detail that I draw will be on the closest walls to us. How much brickwork we want to suggest is really up to us. But I will just add a few bits up here. Even though this brickwork is not complicated, it is time consuming. A simple subject is not necessarily a fast subject to draw. Now I want to get some suggestion of stonework in these front two walls. Now we'll work on this stone wall here. It's further away, so we'll be doing it with a bit of a lighter touch than we used on this closer wall. One thing now that we haven't indicated is the slate work on the roof, and it's a very similar thing to the brickwork. What we don't want to do is start drawing every slate, get every line in there. But what we do draw, we want to get the scale correct. We need to be aware of the angle we create with these lines dividing the tiles vertically. Before I can do the main roof, I do want to put in these skylights. And again, I use what I've drawn to position. So this skylight lines up with this corner. And this one is just past that corner. Now I just need to suggest a little more tiling. I'm feeling we're pretty close to this being finished, maybe a little bit of brickwork just suggested on that chimney. Here we have tips of a pine tree just coming into our picture. So here we have our basic stone cottage, and here we have our basic stone cottage. A simple structure is not necessarily a simple drawing, but it does let us focus on things such as creating surface texture and effects instead of getting too caught up with architecture. Now, all those lines that were in the wrong place, are you really aware of any of them right now? I'm not saying we can't find them, but they're never as obvious at the end of a drawing as they are at the beginning. So we should really learn, especially when we're drawing with ink and we can't erase them anyway. We need to learn to not worry about lines that are in the wrong place. We don't need to start again, but we do need to persevere and to push on and put the line in the correct place. If the line's in the correct place, it will look a lot less obvious than if we leave it in the wrong place. Drawing freehand in ink is a wonderful way to draw. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I will post this drawing on the community page of my YouTube channel if you want to have a go drawing it directly in ink yourself. And the important thing is to have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.